Alrighty guys, welcome back to another multiple apps workflow tutorial. This one is a supplemental tutorial from the Cinema 4D soft image workflow. I realized after finishing that tutorial that I left you guys a little broken. We basically had a head and body that had no eyes or teeth or tongue or anything like that. So animation was kind of sort of incomplete. And frankly, these objects aren't going to follow the body because they aren't binded correctly to anything. But they are separate, and I did say that that was a good workflow, so I figured I should show you guys really quickly a little bit of rigging techniques to allow you to be able to get those eyes and those teeth to follow and deform with the rest of your actor as well, just in case you're going to try to do some videos with these techniques. Alright, so anyway, we need to do a little bit of cleanup of our scene here. Basically, we want this soft image FR components to basically have the body and the eyes and the face and all that stuff. But we also need, of course, to have our tongue, our jaw, and our eyes to all be also a part of the main mesh as well. So what we're going to do is in our test to edit file, which we're going to go ahead and save, we're basically going to create duplicate components here. We're going to create some components that we can use to be able to just quickly export out the soft image, and those components will kind of just be, you know, soft image components that we can use to, you know, facilitate that workflow as we did before. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and select all these components that are basically supposed to be a part of soft image. The body we don't have to duplicate because its main purpose is only to allow us to be able to just reattach the head to the body, and it's not really a component that we're going to be using for our weighting workflow. The face, same thing. That's not a component that's really going to be important in our workflow because we already baked the face into this nitro bake object. So it's just these objects here that we need to worry about. We're going to go ahead and duplicate those and place them up here in the hierarchy. We'll eventually move them out of this null. In fact, we basically put them underneath the nitro bake object and call it a day. Alright, and we can close them up. Alright, so now we have duplicates of the components that we need. The rest of these components, we can go ahead and I believe hold Alt while selecting the null, and that didn't work. So let's try to get this down. It's not Alt, then it's probably Shift, and that didn't work either. Huh. Okay. Yeah, none of that's working. It's cool. We'll just do it manually. What I was trying to do was use a keyboard shortcut that would allow all these to just be grouped manually or automatically. But none of my modifiers are working for some particular reason, so let's not worry about that. Let's go ahead and drag all these components that define the FR, the face robot componentry. Drag them all into one null and call that FR components. And we can basically select it and all its children by middle mouse clicking. And cool. Got them all selected. We can go ahead and drag all those into FR components. And we're good to go. You can go ahead and delete the deformers so that these are just base objects now. No deformations. And there we go. We've got our base pose back together there. And those objects are ready to be shipped out to Face Robot at a moment's notice. And we'll just drag those down to the bottom with the poses as well, so they're just kind of out of our way in our hierarchy. Now, what we can do for the nitro bake is go ahead and rename this to something a little bit better. So we'll call this test underscore mesh. And this null will basically hold the whole entire test mesh. And we can rename this null to test a mesh now. It's basically our combined mesh. And the soft image components, we can go ahead and hide completely now. We don't need them anymore. We can take all of these components now. And in fact, yeah, everything underneath this null, we can take it all and put it under main mesh. Furthermore, we can actually delete test as mesh if we wanted to. But what I'm going to do is, just in case we need it, I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer and call this old underscore mesh. And this will basically be a layer that holds the old mesh. Alright, and we can completely hide the old mesh. We can take the new mesh with its skin deformer, and we can go ahead and drag it underneath the hierarchy for Testa to basically put it right there where it's needed. We can drag the old Testa mesh out. We can basically place it down here at the bottom of the stack, so it's kind of out of the way. And we can just call this old underscore Testa mesh so that we know it's the old mesh. We know we don't want to mess with that no more. All right. So now we've got her dress. The FR components actually should be outside of the Genesis hierarchy. So we can go ahead and drag those up and try to drag them outside the hierarchy. We do the same thing with the old Testa mesh. It doesn't need to be inside the Genesis hierarchy anymore. And then we can go ahead and move that down and move this down, and now they're completely out of the hierarchy there. Alright. Well, so they're out of our way. We could actually hide them by using the hierarchy hide here. There we go. The old mesh is gone, and the FR components are gone as well. That's if we really wanted to clean up our hierarchy. We'll just go ahead and leave them alone. Oh, we'll go ahead and leave them gone. You know, it'll make everything look a little bit cleaner. And okay, we're set to go. So if we turn back on the main mesh, everything's set to go. What we need to do now, of course, is reset everything back to bind pose. So let's go ahead and go into our motion system. Let's go ahead and delete the motion clip. Select all the bones, go to character, commands, and reset pose. And this would be a good command to probably put in the reset PSR palette that I have here. I'll probably do that eventually. I would recommend you guys do the same. Alright. And with everything at bind pose and perfectly organized, we can now concentrate on actually weighting our objects. Alright, so this is really simple. All we need to do is select our object that we want to weight. We'll select the lower jaw first, and we will select all of its polygons, and then we will select the bone that we want to weight it to. And remember, these objects are pretty much 100% weighted to their particular bones, so in this case we want to weight to the lower jaw, so we're going to hold Control, select the lower jaw, and we're going to go ahead and go to character, commands, and bind. And now the lower jaw is bound to the lower jaw bone. Let's go ahead with tongue. And with the tongue, we're going to go ahead and middle click on tongue base, and that's going to select all of the tongue joints, which I think there are like 6 of them. And that's these bones right here. So you get some really nice flexibility with the tongue. All right, and then we'll control click the tongue, mesh itself, and character commands, bind. And now we've bound the tongue. And I don't have that here as well. And binding is a thing that I do pretty regularly when I'm actually making meshes. So it's something I probably want to add to this palette as well eventually. Moving along, let's do the eyes. We've got the left eye and the right eye. And this is the right side to us. So this is actually the left eye. So select the left eye mesh. And we do Control A to select all of its polygons. And we're going to go ahead and do a commands bind. Honestly, I think you can just do these in model mode. You really don't have to select polygons. And the right eye and the right eye bone. This is actually the bone. We can select the right eye itself and do a character commands bind. And finally, I don't think we've done the upper jaw yet. No, it doesn't have a weight tag, as you can see here. It's the only one that doesn't have one. So let's hit Control to select the upper jaw and upper jaw's mesh and do a character commands bind. And now, if we were to check our weights, we really can't see because the mesh is in our way. But go ahead and turn off the mesh. Yeah, we should be able to see that the upper jaw is completely bound to this bone. In the case of the lower jaw, it's bound completely to that bone. The right eye is completely bound to the right eye. Or it should be. Oh, we have to have the mesh selected, of course. And it's not. So what we can do is we can select the joint, select the mesh. Let's go with 100% strength, and we'll do absolute mode, and we'll go ahead and apply all, and we're going to apply 100% weight of this joint to this mesh. And if we mouse over it, we can see that the whole entire mesh, all of its vertices have 100% weight to this bone. The left eye and the left eye's weight tag selected, and if we select the left eye is fine. It managed to get all of its weight for some particular reason, but the right mesh didn't. And we're pretty much good. If we go ahead and bring back our mesh, we should be fully weighted. We can test this by bringing back our motion clip, bringing it down to 0, and no. Even though they're 100% weighted, we didn't end up getting what we were looking for. Alright. So now we'll go into troubleshooting and see why. Let's see. It should have worked. Let's delete the motion clip. Select all the bones. And character commands, reset pose. And let's troubleshoot this. So anyway, these bones are connected to the head bone. And if we rotate the head bone, we should be able to get head movement. Theoretically, our jaws and our eyes should follow that movement, but they're not right now. They're parented to the head bone, so that's not the reason why we're having issues with them. Honestly, they should be weighted correctly, which means if I were to rotate the right eye, because of its axis position, it should technically rotate the eye. We should be able to move the eyes with this bone, but we're not able to yet. Alright. So maybe it has something to do with the MDD deformer. Let's go ahead and turn the MDD deformer off on all of these objects. And now let's try to rotate the head. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's go ahead and re-add our animation in and see what we got. looks like we're pretty golden. Yep. We're pretty golden here, guys. We go ahead and reset our pose. We can go ahead and middle mouse click the Genesis bone and then reset the pose on all the bones. Our issue is with the MDD deformer, and that's not really an issue at all. All we have to do is figure out some way to cache out the MDD deformer. So that we can keep the bone animate, or we can keep the vertex animation, but we can also have the joints be moved by the skin. All right. And the easiest way to do that would likely be to either nitro bake the object or to see if a point cache will allow us to do it. So let's go ahead and try the point cache here. Character tags, point cache. And since this is just one simple object, the point cache will probably work. We'll go ahead and store our state, and then we'll go ahead and calculate out the point cache for the lower jaw. And yes, the lower jaw is moving, so it looks like it's recording all our vertex information for that jaw. And since this MDD deformer is, as it says, a deformer, if we just delete it off the object and then go ahead and bring back our motion clip, we should be able to see, well, if we just delete it, period, we should be able to see that, in fact, the point cache is definitely working. The lower jaw is moving. And if we bring back the motion clip, the lower jaw is bound to the head. And it moves with the animation. Gorgeous. Alright, so all we need to do is just do that for the rest of the objects. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and run through that, and I'll meet you guys back on the other side. Alrighty guys, so we're back. I created point caches for the lower jaw, upper jaw, and tongue. I deleted the MDD deformer off the left eye and the right eye since there was no movement on those, and most of the movement would be controlled by our joints anyway. In fact, just to show you, we select the right eye, just like before with the original DAS control. Because of the axis and because of the fact that the joint is in the same axis as the eye, we can literally move the mesh using the joint and get some nice eye movement, get some very fine control with eye movements here, right here in Cinema 4D, without relying on Face Robot for that, which is pretty great. The tongue, the upper jaw, and the lower jaw all have point caches, so they move nicely with the mouth movements. And if we go ahead and add our motion clip back, as you can see, none of the internals of our face got left over or got left behind. It's all following her motion just fine. Incredible.
Alrighty guys, so as an alternate workflow tip, you can also not have to rely on the point caches as well. you could use the MDD cache deformers. And in order to do so, what you want to do is obey the laws of order of operations here in Cinema 4D. Basically, what happened with the MDD deformer is, because it happened after the skin deformation happened first, so it actually moved the position of the jaw in relation to the skin, or in relation to the joint rather, where the joint's position was, because the objects are weighted 100% to the joints. And then the MDD deformer, because its root, or the base of its coordinate system, is actually at the T-pose. Since it happened second, it basically snaps the jaw directly back to the location that the jaw was in its initial T-pose. So all we need to do really is go to our upper jaw, and I've already added an MDD deform, but let's delete it. And if we go to our plugins and go to Riptide Pro, if we hold Shift while selecting this, it'll snap in as a child of the object that we had selected, which in this case was the upper jaw. So it'll snap in as a child. Once we have it selected, let's unlock our attributes panel here so that we can get at our attributes. Set the point scale to 1. Let's load up the MDD file. And now you'll notice that the upper jaw did not move back to the home location. It is still attached to the character, and it still has its deformations. Beautiful. If we were to move these in the hierarchy, then yes, the jaw would snap back because that's its home position, according to the MDD. This pretty much works for almost any deformer in Cinema 4D. You have to think about your order of operations. Usually, you want deformers to happen after the skin. Usually, but with things like these components here, and with things like the clothes, if you're doing clothes dynamics, if your clothes are going to be attached to your character's mesh, and they're going to deform with your mesh, and you want to combine that with a dynamic simulation that you did in cloth as well, then you might want to put the object's deformations first, and then put the skin second. That way the skinning takes control of the deformation, and that's what you end up with, is a compound effect where the dress follows the character, and it's got all its wrinkles and stuff from the dynamic simulation, plus it's attached to the character in the position that the character is going. So,
all right, guys. So that was the supplemental. I didn't want to leave you guys stranded, trying to figure out how you're going to add those eyes and that jaw and all that back into the animation. Alrighty, guys. So until next time, take care.